Question number 5, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister of Finance. Will he have any specific initiatives to support investment in green technology in his budget on Thursday, given a report by PricewaterhouseCoopers for New Zealand Trade and Enterprise that shows the potential market share that New Zealand could capture of the green tech industry would be worth between $7.5 billion and $22 billion to the New Zealand economy?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, well, the member will have to wait for the budget on Thursday, but if he visited businesses around New Zealand, he would see them investing in green technology all the time. The largest freezing works in New Zealand in my electorate has spent tens of millions on a plant that recycles all the waste, dries it and then burns it to meet the energy needs of a very large industrial site. And they didn't need a green bank or any other particular subsidy to make a sensible investment decision. The government, of course, provides or funds research which is underway in areas of new technology, vehicle fuel economy labelling, improved efficiency of commercial fleets, encouraging alternative forms of transport that are less carbon intensive, among any number of other initiatives. This is all part of the government's business growth agenda, which is supporting businesses to take advantage of New Zealand's green growth opportunities.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has he heard, as I have heard on my many visits to businesses around New Zealand, support for a Green Bank initiative, and hence will he adopt the Green Party's Green Bank initiative to establish a fund to partner with the private sector so we accelerate investment in green technology and pave the way towards a smarter, greener economy?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there's any number of businesses who'd be quite happy to, I think, play with taxpayers' money at low or subsidised interest cost and quite possibly lose it because it's not their money. And no doubt the Greens are being lobbied by those businesses and in fact probably have received, I think, a large donation from a member of the public who has advocated those policies.
Order. That will not help the order of this House.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With regard to having large amounts of taxpayer money to spend on their favourite projects, how is the government's $400 million irrigation slush fund going?
Order. I'll allow the Minister a fair bit of licence. The Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the irrigation fund has, I think, made a commitment of some $8 million. The irrigation company out of an appropriation of around 400, and that $8 million is subject to some pretty strict commercial terms, and we would expect to get the money back.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he think the Conservative Party Prime Minister of Britain, David Cameron, made an error when he set up a green investment bank which has over £3 billion to invest in green projects?
And as far as there's ministerial responsibility, Honourable Bill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, of course, it's up to any other government to follow its own policy. But I think I'd say to the member that in the first place, where these investments add up, New Zealand businesses are making them all over the place. Right. The Green Party doesn't have any monopoly on environmental efficiency. Good, straightforward New Zealanders do these things when they make sense. Secondly, we are pretty wary of setting up, we would be quite wary of setting up some kind of bank subject to political direction, because the track record of those things and the track record of higher profile green tech investment, so-called, seems to be pretty poor, and you'd almost certainly lose the money.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Tim McIndoe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister, what reports has he received on recent investments in so-called green technology companies?
Honourable Bill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I see a range of reports, but one I think could characterise Meridian Energy, Mighty River Power and Genesis Energy as companies that have invested intensively in renewable electricity, to the point where New Zealand has one of the highest rates of renewable electricity in the world. and around about 200,000 people took the opportunity to buy shares in those companies. So that's been a very positive report, much more positive than what I see as, a notably risky investment done by the Green Superannuation Fund. They're allowed to take their punts like everybody else. Unfortunately, by investing in wind flow technology, we're told they lost most of their money. That's not to say every green investment loses money. Many of them are quite successful. It just seems to be those that have the most political advocacy tend to be the riskiest.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is he aware that Australia's Clean Energy Finance Corporation, which has nearly $500 million invested in low-carbon energy projects, is getting an average return of 7.3% over the life of the projects it is investing in?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, no, I wasn't aware of that, and I would agree with the member that investment in renewable energy, for instance, can yield significant returns. That was part of what attracted 200,000 new shareholders to our renewable energy companies. The point I suppose I'm making is that the high-profile symbolic green tech investments with political support tend to be very risky. I'd also point out that some of those investments in Australia will be made, for instance, in wind farms. In New Zealand, we have, I think, the only unsubsidised wind farming industry in the world that operates very successfully, generates returns on investments, certainly meets the members' criteria for green technology investment, but doesn't need a government subsidy to succeed.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Can the Minister explain why it is okay, as the government has promised, to spend $400 million subsidising irrigation projects, but the government doesn't wish to provide any support in the form of a green investment bank or anything else in clean technology, which is not only good for us economically, it's good for us environmentally?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I simply don't agree with the member's assertion the government provides no support for green technology. I mean, we have an extensive science and research program that is publicly funded, and a significant chunk of that spend is precisely on better environmental technologies and understanding the environmental impact of current or new technologies. So the government's quite open to better suggestions about where more money could go for environmentally balanced economic growth. We've just found that the track record of some of these more politically driven green tech investments is pretty poor. In fact, if a politician strongly backs them, it's almost certainly the case that they will lose money.
Supplementary.
Supplementary order. Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Why is the government subsidising the oil and gas industry to the tune of about $46 million and subsidising the irrigation industry to the tune of about $400 million?
It's been more on ECA.
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I think I pointed out before, the actual amount that's been invested in irrigation schemes is $8 million, and it's been done so, and that investment's been done on a commercial basis. With respect to the oil and gas industry, it's actually fairly significantly taxed, and I'm not sure what subsidy the member is referring to. That tax is paid by every household in New Zealand. I'm sure they'd prefer that it wasn't penalised as an industry with significant taxes on its products, but we believe that reflects the right balance of user pays for roads and pricing the environmental externalities of those products.
Question number 6, Dr. Camcorder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the Minister for